Hello and welcome to another complete OCR GCSE PE lesson where you'll learn absolutely everything you need to know on topic 2.1, the components of fitness. As always, we'll be following the OCR syllabus exactly and we'll cover absolutely everything you need to know for your final exam. For topic 2.1, you need to know the definitions of each of the fitness components, including practical examples that demonstrate their importance and a suitable fitness test for each component. Before we begin, I'd really appreciate it if you'd take a moment to click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to be notified when the next topic is uploaded. Fitness can be viewed as a group of components that differ in importance depending on the activity being performed. There are 10 components that you need to know: cardiovascular endurance, muscular endurance, speed, strength, power, flexibility, agility, balance, coordination, and reaction time. So cardiovascular endurance, or stamina, is the ability to exercise continuously without tiring and is dependent on the rate at which oxygen can be delivered to the working muscles by the cardiovascular system and utilised to produce energy via aerobic respiration. Activities that rely on stamina are high in duration and low to moderate in intensity, for example cross-country skiing, long-distance running and road cycling. Muscular endurance is the ability of the muscles to contract repeatedly without rest and is determined by factors like the myoglobin content of the muscle cells and the number of mitochondria contained within them. Athletes who have more mitochondria are able to produce more energy and are therefore more resistant to fatigue. Activities that rely on muscular endurance involve the repeated use of certain muscle groups, for example the latissimus dorsi in rowers and gastrocnemius in runners. Speed is the ability to perform a movement quickly and can refer to the whole body or simply a part of it, like the arm when pitching in baseball. Activities that rely on speed include the 100-meter sprint, 50-meter swimming events, and running to the net to reach a drop shot in tennis. Strength is the ability of a muscle to exert force for a short period of time and is determined by a range of factors including the size of a given muscle and the proportion of fast-twitch fibers contained within it. Activities that rely on strength include weightlifting, tackling in rugby, and performing a ring routine in gymnastics. Power is the ability to perform strength exercises at speed. High levels of force are produced over extremely short time frames, resulting in explosive actions like jumping, throwing, or sprinting. Activities that rely on power include athletic field events like the triple jump and shot put, jumping to win a rebound in basketball, and serving in tennis. Flexibility is defined as the range of movement possible around a joint and is determined by the length and elasticity of the muscles and tendons, as well as the structure of the joint itself. Flexibility enables sprinters to achieve a high knee lift, gymnasts to perform the splits, and divers to adopt a pike position in flight. Agility is the ability to change direction quickly under control and is reliant on other attributes like core strength, power, and balance. Actions that rely on agility include dribbling in football, changing direction to receive a pass in netball, and moving to defend an angled smash in badminton. Balance is the ability to maintain one's centre of mass over a base of support and can be either static or dynamic. Static or stationary balance is important for a gymnast performing a handstand, while dynamic or moving balance is required when performing a beam routine or volleying in football. Coordination is the ability to repeat a pattern or sequence of movements with fluency and accuracy. It's associated with using multiple body parts together to perform tasks like running and striking a ball concurrently. For example, a volleyball player uses their whole body to coordinate a series of movements when performing a jump serve. Reaction time is the time it takes to initiate a movement in response to a stimulus. It's important when responding to the starter pistol or lights at the start of a sprint or motor race, but is also required for games when a performer only has a very short period of time to react. For example, returning a fast serve in tennis, blocking a smash in badminton, or saving a penalty in football. Okay, so that's it for the definitions and practical examples for each of the components of fitness. So we'll move on now to the second and final section on topic 2.1 on fitness testing. We'll begin with the tests for cardiovascular endurance or stamina. The 12-minute Cooper test requires participants to run or walk continuously for 12 minutes on a running track with cones placed at regular intervals to measure the distance covered. After 12 minutes, distance is recorded and compared with normative data, which allows participants to judge their performance relative to broader averages. The other test for cardiovascular endurance, the multi-stage fitness test, is conducted as follows. Participants perform continuous 20-meter shuttle runs for as long as possible, turning and starting the next shuttle in time with a bleep on a recording. The time between the bleeps gets progressively shorter, meaning pace increases throughout the test. When a subject is unable to complete their shuttles in time, the test is deemed to be over, their level is recorded and compared with normative data. For muscular endurance, there are two more tests that you need to know. The press-up test requires participants to adopt a press-up position with arms fully extended and hands shoulder-width apart on the mat. A 90-degree bend in the elbows must be achieved on the way down, and they should be fully extended at the top of the action. Participants complete as many press-ups as possible in one go, without resting between repetitions. When they can no longer continue, the total is recorded and compared with normative data. Note that weaker individuals can use the modified press-up test, in which the knees replace the feet as a contact point with the floor. The sit-up test tests the endurance of the abdominals by measuring how many sit-ups an individual can perform in one go. Unlike the press-up test, sit-ups must be completed in time with a bleep on a recording, and when the participant can no longer keep up, their number is recorded and compared with normative scores. Next, the 30-meter sprint test, which is used to measure speed. This takes place on a flat, non-slip surface between two sets of cones placed 30 meters apart. A flying start is used, and the time is taken, using a stopwatch or timing gates, between the subject crossing the start and finish lines. The test should be repeated, and the best time compared with normative data. For strength, there are two more tests to know, the hand grip dynamometer and 1 repetition max test. The hand grip dynamometer must be set to 0 and adjusted to fit the participant's hand. The subject stands upright, holding the dynamometer out to the side and pulls as hard as possible without moving the arm. The test should be repeated with sufficient time to rest between attempts and the average score compared with normative data. The 1 repetition max test, or 1RM, tests the strength of different muscle groups by measuring the maximum weight that can be moved through a single repetition for a given exercise. For example, a barbell squat may be used to assess general lower body strength, while a leg press would provide a much more specific measure of quadriceps strength. The test begins with a light warm-up set and 2 to 3 progressively heavier sets to prepare the subject for their first attempt. If successful, the subject rests to ensure their next attempt isn't impeded and repeats the process until their optimum level is established. It's important to note that 1RM testing is only suitable for experienced lifters and that a spotter must be present, as the risk of sustaining an injury is significant. Next, the vertical jump or sergeant test, which is used to measure power. First, the subject stands with their arms raised above their head and the vertical jump board is calibrated so that the tips of the fingers are aligned with 0. Using the arms for momentum and bending the knees, they jump as high as possible, touching the board at their highest point. The test is repeated 3 times and the maximum height compared with appropriate normative data. The standing jump test is another way of assessing power. This time the subject stands with their toes behind a line marked on the ground, with their feet slightly apart. Using the arms for momentum, the subject jumps forward as far as possible, landing with both feet together on a mat. The jump is measured from the takeoff line to the nearest point of contact with the floor, which would usually be the back edge of the heel. The test is repeated 3 times and the maximum distance compared with normative data. The next fitness test is the sit and reach test, which is used to measure flexibility, specifically in the hamstrings and lower back. The subject first removes their shoes and sits with their legs straight and the soles of their feet flat against the sit and reach box. They reach forward as far as possible with both hands and their score is recorded using the scale on the box, which measures the distance between the tips of the fingers and the feet. Finally, as with all fitness tests, the score is compared with normative data. Agility is measured using the Illinois Agility Test, which requires subjects to run around a 5 by 10 meter pre-marked course as quickly as possible. The subject lies face down behind the start line with their hands beside the chest. On go, the timer is started and the subject stands up and runs between the cones as quickly as possible. The timer is stopped as they cross the finish line and the score is compared with normative data. Next, the Stork stand test, which is used to measure balance. The participant stands upright with toes facing forwards and their hands on their hips. The right leg is lifted and the foot placed against the inside of the left knee. The timer is started as the participant rises up onto their toes and stopped when the heel touches the ground or the right foot parts from the left knee. The test is then repeated for the left leg and the average score for both legs is compared with normative data. Coordination is measured using the wall throw test. Subjects stand behind a line exactly 2 meters from a flat wall with a tennis ball in one hand. They throw the ball underarm against the wall and catch it with the other hand before immediately throwing it again. This action is repeated continuously for 30 seconds and the number of successful catches is recorded. The test may be repeated and the best score compared with normative data. The final fitness test that you need to know is the ruler drop test, which is used to measure reaction time. An individual holds a meter ruler vertically against a wall. The subject stands facing the ruler with their hand flat against the wall and their thumb hovering over the 5 centimeter mark. The ruler is released and the subject traps it with their thumb as quickly as they can. Where the lower edge of the thumb touches the ruler is marked and the distance the ruler has fallen is recorded. A table can then be used to convert distance into reaction time. Well done, you've just covered absolutely everything you need to know on topic 2.1, the components of fitness. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate your subscription and I'll see you next time for topic 2.2, applying the principles of training.